and do it that way, okay? Okay. Every time this thing, I have to hit got it. So
I know.
it's right in the middle of the screen. That's okay.
Need to
All
know
right, well,
you don't make any
we'll call the
mistakes.
meeting to order. Welcome everybody here to the third, I guess it is, strategic planning. Is it third or fourth? Yeah, third strategic planning meeting, especially Doug, who with the staff board is doing such a yeoman's job of this. First thing we have to do is approve the minutes of the April or the May meeting. Has everybody gotten those? I think I got it this morning from Bobby. If there's no objections, are there any? No objections. We'll just say those minutes are approved. Then we'll ask Doug to review the updated values and goals. I've looked through them and they all the stuff we've done so far looks good. So we can do it any way you want, Doug. There.
Okay, so we'll just start at the beginning of that document. So page one here that Bobby's got on the screen. This should show the edited mission statement from your last meeting. That simply added, spelled out Fairfax County Public Library and used the acronym in parentheses, and then carries that forward through the rest of the information. That's the only change to either of those statements.
Yeah, actually, that first one. Wait a minute, no. This is an old version.
Yeah.
That she's showing us.
Yeah.
That's
we
me.
have
I'll swap it.
Oh, okay, got it.
I will swap it out for the newer one. Sorry.
Yeah, it's the new one does have it spelled out. I have it in front of me. Okay.
Me.
Let's see, and Sue is here.
Good
Hi, Sue.
morning. How are you?
Hi, Sue.
Morning.
Morning.
Sue.
So if everybody's actually has the updated document in front of them, those would be, unless there are any changes, those would be our final approved mission and vision statements.
Yeah. Okay. I had no changes. Has anybody had a chance otherwise, other than me, to look through them? And by final, you mean that we take the word proposed off and stuff like that, and
Right.
that it'll actually be put in the final document the way it is. Yeah.
Yes, and what I will do, probably after this meeting, depending on how the discussion with the four remaining values that are included in this document go, I will put together a sheet that shows you what the final approved version was as of the end of this meeting.
Okay.
That you can still make changes if there are any or tweaks, but that at least gets everybody to a point where we're virtually, almost there on approving those three types of statements.
Yeah, for the mission, vision, and value statements, I did not have any changes. I did have one thing that I did. I like to list them for myself, so I wrote them down. And when I did it, I saw it's a little more obvious that the intellectual freedom and equal access value uses multiple words or words and modifiers, whereas learning and innovation, stewardship and accountability, diversity and inclusion use single words. So I don't have a big problem with that. In fact, I mean, it could just say freedom and access, but then it doesn't really get across what we want to get it across. So does anybody else have any concerns about that? Especially
Would you mind moving to there, because I accidentally closed my window and then I have to go do my face authentication and everything.
Sure.
So if you wouldn't mind, thank you so much.
Who's got it, Bobby?
Example, Brian?
I'm sorry.
Could you give us an example of what you mean?
Oh, sure. I'm not, there we go. See, the new value here says intellectual freedom and equal access.
Right.
Okay. If you go down each of the values, they have two things at the top. Learning and innovation is the next one. Stewardship and accountability is the third one. Diversity and inclusion is the fourth one. And they're fine. And in my view, they cover the ground that we've covered. It's just if you actually just look at the values instead of the value statements, for the first one, intellectual freedom and equal access, it has modifiers. See? So if it said, see what I mean?
I think that intellectual freedom and equal access, though, act as singular
Yeah.
nouns.
Uh,
Like freedom and access is
yeah.
not the same as intellectual
Th-
access.
That's right. That's
think
my
that they
problem too.
actually
Is yeah,
Act as
yeah.
singular.
And I couldn't think of a single word on either side
Right,
that
right, because freedom
would
and
do
access
it.
is not the same. So I mean, that's why I didn't even notice that as what you're
Yeah.
saying. I didn't notice it because
Well, I'm
reads
I'm
well now.
somewhat of a grammatical geek, although not nearly so much perhaps as others on this call, right, friend? But well, you know, it's just I like parallel construction, and this is not. Now, and then I thought about adding modifiers to the other words, and really it just gets
But
messy.
see,
So
see,
I'm
here's-
fine with this. I just want to
I'm
find
just
out if
saying, like
others are.
quibbling on. I mean, I would quibble on that fact because, in fact, I
Yeah.
think that intellectual freedom it actually does read as a singular noun,
Yeah.
even though it's a modifier. Intellectual
Yeah.
freedom is the same as diversity,
Got it.
right?
Yep.
Right.
Right.
Because-
And equal access then. parallels
You know what I mean? That's why it
Yeah.
didn't even register. So I think it actually
Okay.
is parallel, even though it's two words instead of one. That's just
Okay.
my little
That's
thought.
fine with me. Anyway, any other comments on that? I like I said, I'm okay with it. I just, it caught my eye when I listed the values. You know, if we're going to list values,
Mhm.
it's real easy to list sets of 2 words, and then this is a set of 4 words. So
I just think those are both things that always go together.
in the case of libraries, certainly, you know,
Right.
we're not freeing people or anything like that. So. Okay. Okay. So anyway, down to the values, I'm fine with it. If nobody else has any
Yeah.
problems with that, Doug can go right ahead and jump to the goals as far as I'm concerned.
Did anyone have any other thoughts on the remaining values there? Learning, innovation, stewardship and accountability, diversity and inclusion?
You know, one of the things I came out of ALA with is accessibility of young people to materials. And I don't know that we want to get into this in our values, but one of the speakers said it's really important that your mission statement include the tools you need to be standing firm on intellectual freedom and access for all.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're saying that extra emphasis being, or rather not extra, but specific emphasis being put there for young people's access.
That was my concern. Yeah.
I mean, I can understand that. I mean, especially considering now, because one of my questions at the end of getting through the wordsmithing here would be to ask whether there is a plan to include any of this in Wednesday's discussion with the full board, because I know we have some conversations to be had, and a lot of this will apply to that conversation. And I would love to be able to lean into this strategic plan when having that discussion. And what Suzanne just said also applies to the conversation that we will be having to have on.
Children have the right to access materials. It's up to their parents to take that right away, not the library.
Agreed.
Right.
And you don't want to come out and say that in your statement, but I just want to be sure we firmly support that.
Well,
Well,
one thing that is going to happen, Suzanne, with the rest of this is
Okay.
we're going to flesh out some of this, particularly what you just talked about in the narrative that we surround the statements with, because the
Okay.
statements themselves don't allow us to, really expand a lot on what it is we mean by intellectual freedom, or what we might mean by, diversity and inclusion, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So the staff committee has talked about ways to, make it more clear and expand on those concepts and those issues in the larger narrative that we weave around us.
Okay,
And
great.
in the narrative, there's an opportunity to create a really positive message around that, because oftentimes it feels like the messaging gets kind of negative around that the library is not doing what it needs to protect children, that the library is not doing something. But instead, the library is really here to support families and parents as they find ways to educate, entertain, and recreate with their children in a way that makes sense for them as a family unit. That's why we provide a broad spectrum of resources, programs, and spaces so that everyone has a space that they can feel welcome in. And it's up to you as a unit to figure out how to utilize them. And that's a really positive thing. That's
Yeah.
there for everyone.
Yeah.
It's not we're trying to leave anyone out. It's trying to include everyone. So
And it's
I'm
not
sure
like
it's
we're
not-
trying to influence one way or another either, I mean, it's just the information is here. We as our public resource, with all of this access.
Yeah.
And
And I'm
if
sorry,
I-
Fran, I saw your hand up. I think I cut
It's
you off.
okay. What I like about the value statement is that, the first part of it, we provide is the verb. And then in the little paragraph, we embrace diversity, we create conditions, and we advocate really strong. And I think that speaks to, Suzanne, what you were saying about, I know, because you and I were talking about this on Saturday, and that young people have First Amendment rights, just like adults. I think was the way that you worded what you got from ALA, which I thought was really, really good. And so then I think that this, this is the overview, which is really strong. And then as Doug and Jessica were talking about the narrative, I think it's really powerful.
Okay.
Okay.
Brian,
And
Susan?
Sujatha, in regards to what you were saying, we won't be talking in detail this Wednesday about it, but when it is before the end of the year, when it's comes up as a consideration item and discussion item, we can do that later, right, Jessica?
Yeah, well,
I mean,
this,
we're not gonna
no,
get
this
into it
item.
each and every meeting.
So
Otherwise,
this item is not up for consideration at your board meeting
Yeah.
on Wednesday, but you all
Yeah.
as committee members can take what you have discussed and shared so far and incorporate that
no.
into your conversation.
true,
And I think Sue had her hand up as well.
yes.
The concern that it's not specific enough, is that the concern that in this value statement that we're not addressing children's rights or young people's rights specifically? Is that the concern here? Because wouldn't it be better as a value statement to be more broad in general? And then
Yeah.
like,
Mhm.
David said in the narrative, drill down and say, for example, young people's access to da 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 da. And that way we're covering bases, yet we're not going to be locked into a certain position that someone can come back to us and say, hey, this
Yeah.
Mhm.
shouldn't be for everything.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion on this stuff before we get into the goals? Of which the first one is equitable access. So we'll probably have the same discussion. Go ahead, Doug.
Okay, so the staff committee put together a list of quite a few goals. We looked at a number of other jurisdictions' library systems. We looked at starred library systems, the ones that are considered to be high performers. And we created a list of a number of different types of goals. And then we hashed those out and got down to, the 5 you see here. We discussed is there an optimal number? Our current plan has 5. We've seen as many as 7 in various library systems, as few as 3. We decided on keeping 5. We did talk about getting as low as 3, but when we get that low, we started combining, one value, one goal with another, and it just didn't seem to make a lot of sense to do it that way. So we stuck with 5. We modified a couple of our current goals and then added a couple of new ones. So the first one, as you said, Brian, there is equitable access. It's very similar to what our current goal for expanding access to library services is. It doesn't change it all that much, tweaks the wording a little bit. Otherwise, it's pretty much the same as what we currently have.
I like option 2 because I like the word all.
Yeah.
But given this discussion we've had about what equitable means, or that it should be for all people, maybe we want to adjust that a little bit. We could say expand equitable access for all to library services or something like that. I don't know whether that matters, or to all library services makes sense, but for all would include all people, all young and old. That's just a thought I had.
you wanted to put some expanded focus on it, you could always say expand equitable access to library services to all ages or to all residents or to
That
all-
would be, yeah, we could do that. What do you think, Sujatha? Or, I hate to put you on the spot, but then again, I will.
I think, me, when I read it
Yeah.
to mean that when we say expand equitable access, that we are
Yeah.
just it's tacitly implying that it's expanding equitable access.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like that the goal is that our whole community, young and old, all members of our community would have that we would be focusing our attentions on the expansion to all. Now, if you think it needs to be put in there specifically, I don't know, something like what Sue was just saying, or somebody was just saying just now, you don't want to be put in a position where you're like, okay, then to all, to whom, to old, you would say to all ages. What do you mean? Do you mean to all races? Do you mean to all, you know what I'm saying? When you just say expand equitable access, then you could make the argument then for everybody, because it's
Right.
without
Okay.
having made any specifics, because it's just expanded equitable access.
So the way it stands there, either option 1 or 2 is fine with you?
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
And and the difference between all library services and all library services, well, is something we could quibble. Is there something now? Like, I don't know. Are there things now that like, I don't even know, do we have a reserve section where you have to put your name on a list to get access to white gloves to be able to open? I don't know if we even have that like you do in various university libraries and stuff. And are we talking about that? You know what I mean? So do we really need all library services, or do we want to take all out and just say library services so people don't then think that there is something that right now they don't have access to? I don't know the answer to that question because I don't know what we do and don't have access
Yeah, I
to.
see your point. Interesting. Yeah,
Like right now, there are
I,
libraries, right, where you do not have access to
Mhm.
all those services without special permissions
yeah,
and special equipment, special rooms, special everything, right? You get into that room and you get special equipment to look at special collections. I don't know if we have
Mhm.
such things here in a regular public library versus a university library that has special collections and stuff like that. And
the
do
only
we
thing I could imagine would be the Virginia room. I
Right.
guess. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Archive.
and here's the thing, at the Virginia room, do we have documents that some people really do not and should not have access to?
Only if they're super fragile. The one thing that comes to mind is the really old telephone books that are like powdering up.
mm,
And we do have at least when I
gloves.
left, there was a box of white gloves if we needed to ask people to wear them. They were there.
Maybe, I imagine that there must be, Suzanne, if one wanted to access those for research, for various research to get into those things, including our moldering documents and stuff, that there's a process. Do we want to have to be saying it because we put it in our goals that we want to encourage everyone to go in and get into everything? You know what I mean? Because I think that as you further your interest in a particular thing, like say genealogy, you will find those places, find those people, find that access just through the normal course of your research. You're figuring out how to do research. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think we need to put all in, is what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I don't know if we necessarily need to
So
put
you like option 1 then?
I like option 1 just because I like to give us
Okay.
the most latitude for what we actually are
Mhm.
looking for, because we're not actually
That's
looking to
good.
have everyone involved in everything that they're not particularly interested in. What we are looking to do is make sure that the things that are of interest
Yeah.
to people that they can get to. That's what
Yeah.
I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
I like the goals stated in such a way as, like Sue, I think it was Sue who was just saying that we have some latitude there and we haven't
Yeah.
made it more difficult for staff, because also staff, we are short-staffed and we're having hard time finding people. Do we want to put our staff into a position where they have to support access that we don't have the manpower to support? I don't know. I'm just thinking far-reachingly,
Mhm.
So
Okay.
Sujatha, I think what I'm hearing is that by having all in the statement, we're emphasizing it a little bit to
That's
make
what
it
I'm thinking.
more people reading into it more.
That's what I'm thinking. I
Rather
don't know
than
if that's the
just
way you all see it.
library services. which I
Mhm.
could see some people doing, you know,
Yeah.
I mean,
if
I'm
someone's
just
trying to pick
saying-
it apart.
Yeah, I'm just saying that, I think that now as we, as we enter a brave new world for libraries and librarians, while we're simultaneously short-staffed and finding it harder and harder to staff positions, I want us to be extra careful to protect our staff, our community, our books, our resources, by having a goal that actually says what we mean. And what we mean is that there should be no one, by virtue of their sexual orientation, their race, their income level, their physical proximity to a library, et cetera, to not be able to get books that they want and need. If you do want those moldering tomes in the Virginia room, of course you should have access to those, but not everybody wants to have access. So, I think that we want to make sure that people get what they need and what they want, and that we have staff able and ready to support that. I don't know. I just think that putting I don't think it makes a difference. I'm just like, because we're looking at it with a fine tooth comb like this with under a magnifying glass, I'm saying that nobody else would be thinking that. I'm just, because we're doing this close read is why I'm saying.
No, I think that, and that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to talk about it here. The other word I had just a little bit of a question with was the word expand, because to me that implies that we don't currently have equitable access on all our services, and therefore we want to expand it. And I think we actually do. So the word offer, to me, offer equitable access to library services, to me sounds a little more, well, a little better, but I don't know. Is there a reason that the word expand should be there, Jessica? Maybe?
Yeah, I would recommend keeping something that indicates a continual effort to ensure that there is equitable access, because that can mean, as we've discussed, any number of things. From a staff standpoint, we are always looking to create additional pathways for people to use the services and materials that we have, whether it's renovating our facilities so that we have better ADA access to facilities, like if we're looking at it from a really practical standpoint, or whether it's continuing to review the types of materials that we buy so that they're reflective of all of the changing communities that we serve. There are always opportunities for us, not saying that we don't provide excellent access to resources and spaces now, but does everyone know about the stuff that we have? Probably not. So we do want to find ways to continue to broaden those pathways.
Okay.
And it's things like, it's a very expanded view of the word expand. So different media, different devices, those kinds of things. Doesn't, as Jessica said, doesn't mean we don't already provide those materials. It's just we're looking to provide them in as many ways as possible that make access to them is equitable.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is option one seems to be what people like, and that's fine with me. Anybody else want to argue for anything else?
I had a question, Doug. Did the committee talk about access to library services and materials?
Yeah, so going back to your very first meeting in January, one of the things that your committee mentioned was to make it clear to the reader of this plan what it is we mean by access. What do we mean by the other things that are included in this plan? So what the staff committee has talked about is ways to using our objectives to actually make it clear what we're talking about when we mean access. So for example, we could end up having an objective that talks about diversifying our digital and physical collections, that talks about removing barriers, that talks about age-appropriate programming, providing literacy services, demonstrating value in our spaces and our resources. So we've kind of begun the conversations about how to make it clear from this goal what it is we mean by when we talk about access and equitable access.
Okay.
So we can certainly look to include language in objectives that talk about the materials that we offer.
I just think that's really important, that access to all includes young people being able to access all materials in the library.
Okay.
Somehow without being in your face saying it, but it's there to protect us should people get seriously involved in going after us.
Any other comments on this first goal?
And you've convinced me to go with one. I had
Oh,
preferred two,
Yeah,
so.
me too. Yeah.
Okay, so that's option one there. Go ahead on goal 2.
Okay, so one of the other things that the staff committee talked about is there are what we kind of considered almost universal goals for libraries. Access is one of them.
Mhm.
Technology is another one. So we took our current goal of technology and tweaked it a little bit to technological integration. We've got the options listed there for you to look at. And again, our objective conversations have talked about, okay, what do we mean by technological integration? The committee went back and forth about technology versus technological and, the proper grammatical approach to a 2-word statement, basically. And these are the 2 options we came up with.
I like innovation, but I don't think we need the for our patrons part
Ditto.
because that's, yeah.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
I
me
kind of
too.
liked number 2 without the last phrase. But,
Yeah, me too.
because we're trying to expand patronage too, whatever we want to call it, customer base.
Could I ask about innovation?
Mm.
Why do you have, well, I don't know if major difference is the word innovation included in option 2, but how is that
Mhm.
different from expansion? Or do you see the difference between
Well,
expansion and
to
innovation?
me, the difference is that, yeah, expansion just means make it greater, and innovation means to use technology in different ways. I think of things like the online innovations we had for book clubs and reading and stuff like that during the COVID. It was librarians use regular or use existing technology or maybe new technology in different ways. So that to me is what innovation means, as opposed to expansion, which just means use it more. But yeah,
That's kind of how the staff committee talked about it as well, Brian. We discussed, so the library offers hotspots, we offer tablets, but we have certain numbers of them. So, expanding them is providing more of them. Innovation might mean something that's coming out down the road that we don't yet offer, but might want to offer when it's, when the bugs are worked out, when the cost is appropriate, those kinds of things.
Yeah, those story machines, for example, were pretty innovative, not perhaps by us, but getting them was innovative, I think, and moving them around from library to library.
Maybe putting it in the goal like that sort of signals to staff that they're always on the lookout, always looking to see what could be new and a benefit to our library system.
If I could add I agreed with Brian on taking out the for our patrons. Because my question there was, would that serve to exclude staff and behind the scenes operations? And I think that, we definitely would not mean to do that, because we're always looking for ways to make life better for the staff through technology. So I think that's another, it's kind of a limiting thing. And I think I agree to take that out.
One of the beauties of being part of the staff committee is that we made the conscious decision not to do all of this wordsmithing so that we could leave it to you guys.
Oh, good. That's a good thing.
The last 3 words of that, the for our patrons, was added because we couldn't figure out whether or not it was something we didn't want to include as an option for you guys. And so that was just got included because we didn't want to be the ones to make that decision.
Yeah. Okay, so what I'm hearing is option 2 without the for our patrons is what seems to be interesting to most people. Is that?
Yeah, I think so.
The consensus, is that good? Okay. All right. So that would be our view on that.
So goal 3 also falls into that category of kind of a given type of goal that library systems have. literacy development. So our
Mhm.
current plan has a goal for literacy. We've tweaked it a little bit, as you can see from the slide. And these are the two options that we've come up with. They're very similar, you know, just a little bit of wordsmithing.
First. Mhm.
Can I ask a question about that? Is there, I know that we do have literacy services. We had a wonderful presentation about that from some of the people who lead the young people's literacy development. I know we also do foreign language, I mean, like English, rather, English literacy stuff. We even do foreign language stuff. So is there a way for us to include or to consider, I'm putting in a pitch, our schools, FCPS has changed its literacy methodology to support science reading, structured literacy, which is the methodology by which the brain best learns to read. So it's like systematic and explicit phonemic awareness training. Like it sounds, it's making sure that children actually learn to read, as opposed to what we've been doing for a long time, and what I'm sure that many librarians were instructed in, and what I myself as a teacher was instructed in, which was sort of a balance, or even I'm so old that it was a whole language approach, which ended up not teaching kids how to read, you know.
Yeah.
And a lot of kids were not taught how to read, and thousands of kids were graduated out of our school system year after year and across the country, because with this failed approach that failed to teach kids to read, however, was very much focused on trying to build enjoyment in reading and books and love of books, which is part of the goal of libraries as well. So libraries have been, I don't want to say complicit, but very much used as part of that wrong-headed approach that left many, many thousands of children unable to read and increased our illiteracy levels in this country. I don't know whether the libraries have had a chance to even catch up on that, know that, realize that the schools are doing that, and whether there has been any kind of way to bridge with our schools yet, which have just started doing this in this past year. And this year is the first year that they're really going forward, K2. Is there a way for us? I think it would be a huge benefit to our community and to our libraries if we were to have materials that were science of reading, structural literacy focused, that were in a special place or easily accessed. Like phonemic, I mean, we do have these books that are phonological, like Bob books, for example, that are, we have things like that. I know we have them in the libraries, but if there was, I think it would be a benefit to the community, let's say, if we were to find a way to either make sure that we have staff that was trained in that's doing literacy stuff, the people who are doing literacy stuff, that they had some training in that. If there was a way for us to figure out a way to fund that kind of training, I think would be a benefit to the community. I know that these people who do this do train others and do have programs that go countywide. When we went Zoom, they were able to access so many more students that way. But I could tell from that presentation that there was, you know, that these are people who are teaching. They're not teaching reading; they're reading, and they're reading, and it's a very different process, right? Reading to kids and teaching kids to read is a very different process. I know we do both, but that's just something I want to put out there. I'm happy to talk about this later offline.
Yeah, Sujatha, I'd be happy to chat with you a little bit further.
Excellent, because I think it would be fantastic. Just
yeah,
this particular goal.
I believe that we have started some work around that. I think this came up not that long ago, and we had connected with colleagues at FCPS specifically for our early literacy staff that do outreach events to communities. Yeah. I'd be happy to check back in on that and see.
Thank you. And I would love to be any bridge I can do, because it was a lot of the work that I've done through other advocacy work that allowed that made FCPS sort of move in that direction quickly. And so we're hoping to be able to get some big pay off on that quickly for a lot of kids. So I would be happy to connect, to do anything I can to help facilitate and to just add that layer to this particular goal.
Okay.
I can also tell you, Sujatha, that we've got 2 prospective objectives that speak directly to partnering with the school system to improve K through 12 grade level reading and to work with the schools on digital literacy across their curriculum.
Excellent. Thanks so much.
So could I ask about adult literacy? I mean, that's something that I do a little bit of, and we've been focusing a lot on K-12, which definitely is important. But what kind of services or supports do we have for adult literacy learners?
Well, this is why I like the word programs in there. So the
Mhm.
option 2 is the one I like. 'Cause,
Yeah.
the English as a second language program, I guess, would be one. I'm sure there are probably others, Jessica.
Absolutely. So we offer a number of different venues of support for adult literacy language learners. Some of them are partnering with organizations like yours to provide structured class style activities for folks that are either trying to read, speak, or write more proficiency for school or job use. We offer English language learning tutor groups that are housed at specific library locations and are around specific languages that are predominant in those communities. Some of them are for folks that are trying to learn English. Some of them are for groups that are trying to learn another language that is more predominant in their community. And of course, we have materials in our facilities and on our database site that allow people to do it at a self-taught pace as well. Doug, I don't know if the committee has worked on any specific objectives to go along with those areas.
Not specifically, but we can certainly, I mean, right now they're reviewing a pretty substantial list of objectives, but when we meet next week, we will be talking about all of them, and I will include them in the conversation that we're having, and we can talk further about what additional objectives we might want to discuss or include or, tweak to cover these areas.
Do we have, to piggyback on Sue's question, do we have specific, I probably should know this, but do we have specific, like for English speakers who do not have basic literacy, do we have programs like that that are widely available, especially in communities that have larger numbers of community members who struggle with literacy?
So I'll be happy to start on that one, and I'll say kind of. So in those specific communities, we often partner with external nonprofit groups like the Northern Virginia Literacy Council to offer structured programs, because that is definitely outside the staffing capacity and wheelhouse of what we do.
Right.
So we try and collaborate with those groups to find the best locations. In recent years, it's been in Mount Vernon District and Lee District and in Hunter Mill. Those are the areas we've tended to focus more of our energies on.
And those people come to our facilities and hold class in our
Yes.
facilities. And those are
Correct.
free of charge usually?
The library pays the cost for those.
The library pays the cost for those. Fantastic.
Indeed. Groups like those nonprofit groups work with different county agencies to offer it. So if you were to take a class like that at a community center, the community center might either be able to pick up part of the cost, or they might pass the cost along to the end user. But our goal at the library is to provide strong structured access to literacy. So we pay the full cost to ensure that folks can participate as they are interested and have a need to. Yeah. But we would be happy to, staff on the committee would be happy to look at this specific goal and make sure that the objectives that we come out with have some that are representative of a variety of different age groups, because it's, it's for all ages. We're fortunate here in Fairfax County that such a high percentage of our adults do have functional literacy levels, but that doesn't mean the same thing to everyone. And it depends on where you are at your point in life. If you are trying to better your conversational skills so that you can get a promotion at work, or if you're trying to get basic writing skills so that you can fill out a job application online, it's a whole spectrum of things.
The whole spectrum of things that, obviously have enormous impact
Absolutely.
on your ability to live a functional life. And in fact, if you think that we have, let's just say, and have had for many years, for several decades in Fairfax County, which if these are adults who went through our school system, we regularly, we succeed, or like people pass their SOL, let's say, at an approximately 80%, 81% pass rates, which means that we leave about 20% without having passed. Now imagine that you pass at 400 like the score is 400. The difference between 399 and 401 is nil. The difference between 390 and 410 is nil. So if you are not scoring at, say, above like a passing fans, which is 500, you really don't have. And that, of course, it gets worse and worse and worse as years go by and you're unable to access curriculum. So we, in fact, know that our school system has failed a great number of adults that now live in our community that may have, like, it's really not functional literacy to live in a community like this, where we don't have a lot of jobs that are available for you to make a good living.
Agreed.
So it would be a wonderful, I think that could be, there's really very little else that could be like as impactful for our libraries is to really get a handle on that or do something to serve that.
Concur.
Thank you, Sue,
Okay.
for being sure to
I
say
like
that.
So-
option 2, because I like
Two.
the addition
Number
of
two.
programs.
Number two.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree
Yeah,
with that.
me
Okay.
too. Yep.
Okay, great. Look forward to seeing more stuff on this.
Okay, so goal 4. This is a modification of a current goal that we have at the moment. It's the strategic focus is called Civic Engagement. And in looking at the objectives that are under that goal, there's only one that actually speaks to civic engagement. The rest really speak to age-appropriate programming. So the staff committee took that and we talked a lot about the need for community engagement rather than civic engagement specifically. So we tweaked it a little bit. You can see the difference there at the bottom of the slide that from our current goal. And again, this is a theme that's in the county strategic plan. So it gives us a direct tie-in for that, which we liked. And then we have a number of possible objectives that'll fit under this that speak to things like collaborating with county organizations,
Okay.
in providing, welcoming spaces, getting out in the community and providing library services outside of our walls, revising communication strategies, those kinds of things.
For the past few years at the Burke Center Festival, which is one of the larger community festivals in the area, the libraries have had a booth and it's always populated with lots of people. I think it's Pohick, Burke Center, and I think Richard Byrd cooperated one time, maybe some others, but it's a nice way to get people to know the library and to apply for library cards, they were here. So
Yeah, staff
great.
do a really good job of that kind of outreach. I think Viva Vienna comes to mind. I think there's one in Tysons,
Yeah.
or used to be in Tysons, that, we
Yeah.
always we try to have a
Restaurant.
presence at a lot of those events.
And don't forget
great.
the book cart drill teams in various parades around the county.
Oh, at the parade, yeah.
Yeah.
4th of July parade.
All my neighbors tell me how great the drill team was in the 4th of July parade. And I think they do it in the Vienna Halloween parade and maybe
Yeah,
in Reston at a parade.
That's pretty funny. Yep.
So
Yep.
a unique kind of outreach.
Yeah, but that's sort of community outreach. And I like the fact that communities, by the way, is plural here, since Suzanne brought up
Yeah.
that fact 2 meetings ago, I guess, and you've kept with it, and that's good. So communities, schools, patrons, I like option 2 on this one. I
Yeah, me
can't think
too.
of anything else to add.
Yeah, I like the word relationships. I think it's broader than just partnerships, and I like
Yeah.
that.
Uh,
And
And
I wasn't
partnerships will be
I
discussed
wasn't
later.
sure. I wasn't sure of them I wasn't sure of it. I wrote something else that
Well-
it maybe is too different. I said like strengthen and build relationships with individual library users and representatives of community groups and schools. But then, Doug, hearing what you have to say about what is going to go under this to specify, I think that kind of covers what I was thinking when I did that little
Mhm.
rewrite. So I do like number 2, and I don't
Okay.
know if the word meaningful needs to come in there somewhere, or if mutually beneficial is communicates plenty. But I agree with you, Brian. I like number 2.
Okay. Any other comments on this one? I'm sorry.
I concur.
Oh,
With a
okay.
lot of
No,
these-
that's fine. We don't have to vote, but I just wanted to find
Yeah.
out if Sue or Sujatha or Suzanne had anything else. All the Sues.
with pretty much with everything in a strategic plan is we try to work
Yeah.
from kind of the top down. While,
Mhm.
you know, in management structures, a pyramid is not necessarily a good idea. In this type of subject matter, we try to start general and work our way down and get more specific the farther down we get, which allows the end point really is where the branches and the departments are able to really fine tune their
Right.
objectives
Yeah.
underneath what the system's goals and objectives are, which allow the system to fine tune what we do underneath the county's plan.
Yeah.
Mhm. Great. Okay, let's go to the last goal for today, I guess, 5, unless you, oh, wait, yeah, that's it.
Mhm.
Yeah, so our last goal, resilience and economic opportunity, speaks to an issue that your committee raised back in January with regarding economic opportunity and job training and that type of thing. We also felt that it's a very important thing. We're seeing it in other jurisdictions in their goals and in their objectives. This is a new one for us. If we don't have a current goal that speaks to anything that's economic related. We do already offer things like like interviewing skills and resume writing, you know, workshops, that kind of thing. Our possible objectives under this speak to things like targeted support for nonprofits and small businesses, engage in strategic partnerships that help contribute to the success of Fairfax County. Connecting with small business owners and connecting them with government assistance information. That's been a big thing with what we discovered in the county strategic planning process is that, as with the library, we do a lot of things, but not everybody knows about all of them. And so getting that word out there, getting that information, spreading the information across agencies, you know, kind of breaking down some of the silos is something we're after with this type of goal.
Okay. I like what you said there. I like the word champion. So again, option 2 came to my mind on here, but so let's talk about this. And then I have another question about something else you said. Does anybody else have any comments on this one? No?
Well, I
Okay.
just wondered on number 2, like, I was sort of playing around with the word that contributes to the economic opportunity. And I was wondering, or do we need a stronger word like it aids or boosts? But then,
boosts the economic.
yeah, so I don't
That's
know, or
interesting.
if we want contributes, which is broad enough to include, you know, maybe a little incremental help, as like boost would seem like, woo.
Yeah, well, but it boosts it boosts economic opportunity,
And
which
success,
which then boosts the success. And champion is kind of a sports word too.
because
So
champion is
and boost,
very,
yeah. So I wouldn't mind that. I don't know if you guys thought about that, Doug, or not.
What our discussions involved more than you know, wordsmithing it to contributes or boosts is how do we prove it? How do we show that the library is contributing or boosting or whatever word it is we want to use?
Oh,
So
okay.
we talk
So
more about ways
measure
to
of
justify the
effectiveness.
statement and prove that we're actually doing something.
Right, I was gonna ask about that. How do you, what is your evaluation process on meeting these goals? And do you have to have hard numbers? And do you have programs in place already? If not, maybe the first step is supporting the development, because you said this is a new goal for you. Champion can mean many different things, but I don't know. This goal is for 5 years, or these statements?
Yes.
But you could start with champion and just, you know, have your smaller objectives to be building up to this overall championing. But I guess championing.
And championing is much easier. It's much easier to prove championing, because championing just means that you were doing it with your full heart, right? You put your back into it. That's
Yeah, right.
But boosting is harder because you'd have to say that there was actually a measurable change, whereas contribute really does sound incremental, and like you were part of a many-pronged approach that a person took to improving their economic station.
Yes,
I mean,
I like how
Right,
you
and-
put that, Sujatha.
And there are some things that we, like I said, we already do. So we offer certain workshops, certain programming that contribute to meeting this goal. And those are quantifiable. So we know how many programs that we offered with, say, resume writing or interviewing skills, or, you know, being able to search for jobs through the internet, those kinds of skills. So we know how many we offer and how many people attended. So some of these we do have quantifiable results that can help
you
us
don't-
show the county that, hey, we contribute to this.
Yeah,
So
but you
I-
don't, but to
But
say boost,
you
you'd
would
have to,
follow up
Yeah.
on those learners and say,
right,
what are the results? 6 months, 12 months, 18
Right.
months.
yeah.
We have a
Right.
grant from the state
Right.
of Virginia, so we totally understand how complicated and time consuming it is to do those reports on individuals.
So I have a question. Does this include like internal workforce, like the library workforce? Or is it
Sure, why
just,
not?
or is it all external? And I'm thinking of way back in the day when I was training coordinator, and we instituted a mentoring program for the pages to have a career path into circulation.
Mhm.
And at the end of you know, we had classes, and we did an interviewing workshop for them, and then we had a graduation ceremony, and then we had testimonials from the pages who had participated. And one of the most moving one was a young woman, I think she was from Afghanistan, and she said that her parents had been you know, setting up an arranged marriage for her to bring and to sponsor a man to come over to be her husband, and that after this program had given her the confidence to say that she was now sponsoring him to come to the United States, but not necessarily to be her husband. And so it was one of those really moving moments at a
Mhm.
ceremony where you know, you ask a question like, what did this program mean for you? What changed for you as an individual? And
Mhm.
you know, you sort of expect general, like you're saying, it's hard to measure. So I just wondered if if this is not intended for an internal agency goal, you know, or because then if you did, you could measure things really easily.
Mhm.
I don't
Well,
know.
and on that note, Fran, so again, we're going from the broad to the,
Uh-huh.
you know, to the refined. And with all of these goals, I view them we don't limit ourselves to just external. Okay. My
Okay.
feeling is that they apply both equally internally as well. Whether that's
Yeah.
technology, you know, so if there's a technology out there, we're not thinking of just adding it for the patron's benefit. We think about what we can add that helps staff do what they do so well in addition. And this falls right into that. So what else
Yeah.
can be, what are we doing that, whether it's for the customer or internally
Internal.
for staff,
Mhm.
to help us meet this goal? And I can see branches and departments saying, hey, this is how we're meeting this goal at POHIC. And it may be
Yeah.
that they've got a training class for staff, or that they're
Right.
doing X for staff.
And there's also the, you know, the programs that the foundation offers for staff, that staff and volunteers can apply for scholarships,
Yeah.
and for staff training as well.
Mhm.
So there are a lot of measurable
Okay.
things there.
Well, I don't see that this doesn't apply to staff. It's applied to anybody in the county. So I think we're fine staying fairly general.
Yeah,
Sounds like the word champion is acceptable to people, but not boost. Is that right? Or
sounds good.
I think it's a little stronger than support. So option 2
Yeah.
again is good here.
Could-
And the other
could
thing
I-
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, could you just say to the success of Fairfax County residents and staff, which would be all county staff who may not live in Fairfax
Oh.
County? And also,
Well,
I would beg to add Fairfax County and city residents.
well, yeah, then we have other cities too. I
Well,
don't know
no, but
whether
we're
we wanna do-
serving Fairfax City as well, so
yeah.
that's my job as the city representative.
no, I
to
understand.
handle that.
Well, I don't know. Maybe you want to Doug, can you wordsmith it a little more to have that?
Sure,
Or
we
would that be in the objectives underneath, maybe say, by Fairfax County residents, we mean people who work or live and live, whatever, in Fairfax County, city, and other
Well,
places.
I think if you just said Fairfax County and city residents and staff.
I think
Yeah,
in
but
prior language, we've just taken out Fairfax County. It's just said residents, or in this case, if you
Right.
wanted it, it could read success of
Or our
and
residents
staff.
and our residents and staff instead of
Okay, well, that's
Fairfax
a thought.
County.
That's kind of
Mm.
weird, though.
Is that,
Residents, yeah. I mean, it's just,
Could we
I don't know.
just
It's
have
tricky.
success of residents and then, like Doug said, in the objectives, drill down a little bit more, be more specific, have an objective geared towards, the patrons and an objective geared towards the staff. So we have a general
Mhm.
goal, and then when people ask, well, what does it mean? We've got these smaller objectives that are more specific for these different audiences, I suppose.
we can certainly include
Yeah.
objectives that do that.
Okay, yeah, let's see what you come up with, because the objectives are what you're coming up with next time, I think, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. Now but the one thing you mentioned earlier that made me think of something else was that people don't know about what we're already doing and what we'll do in the future. Our marketing and the Branch Out magazine, other things are going a long way towards that. But I don't see a particular goal, objective, vision, or anything that says we need to make sure that all people in our variety of communities, the county, the cities, and so forth, actually know what we do or have available for them, expanding that. Is that something that you see, Jessica, maybe fitting in one of these we've already talked about, or would that be something additional? It just struck me when you were discussing that.
I personally would think that it would fit under goal 4 around community engagement, because so
Okay.
much of
You can't
Yeah.
engage unless
their
you know
work
what you're
is
doing.
to communicate so that we can
Yeah.
engage. I
Okay.
don't know if the committee has done any objective work focused on marketing communications at this point, but that would be where I would see that fitting in. Doug?
Okay, yeah, maybe that's true. I want to make sure that we always recognize that, because I found when I was chair of the foundation, I was so frustrated by librarians in my local branch saying, "Oh, they have scholarships that we could apply for."
Right,
Oh,
Yeah,
right.
we do. I mean,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
difficulty is
It's just so frustrating that
I
people
mean,
don't know what's
we
going
have
on.
we have pretty good communication. We have pretty good marketing. The
Yeah.
question is how good and how do you measure that? I mean, outputs are easy to measure. The number of this, how many of that, but it's the effectiveness of it that becomes difficult.
Yeah, true.
What kind of reach do, so we've thrown more money into the marketing budget. What does that mean? How did that
Right,
increase our reach into the community and in informing them of what we do?
Mhm.
A lot of times we fall into the category of, at some point, the user has to have some responsibility for finding out what it is we do.
Mhm.
And not just assuming
Yeah.
that, oh, the library doesn't do that. Or
Yeah,
the last
yeah.
time I was in the library 35 years ago, they didn't
Right.
offer that.
And I get that a lot. All I want to do is make sure that somewhere, because this is a strategic plan and it goes for the next, 5 years. And, people are supposed to think about it both on the staff and outside the staff, then of what we do. I think we have to have that idea in there that people always have to be aware of, people in leadership roles at the very least, have to always be aware of what's available and to let their staff and volunteers and others know that. If you're a branch manager and you have a meeting and you know that people on your staff are going to go to college or they're leaving because they're going to go get a degree or something like that, well, then mentioning scholarships that the foundation offers is a big thing. Again, I'm coming back to that just because I was so frustrated from people saying that I didn't know that these were available. Well, darn it, they should know, because their leadership should tell them that. And I would like it if all of our staff understood that and understood that as we go forward, they need to let the community know. It's not just a formal community engagement. It actually is letting people know what's going on and what we can offer them, and then coming back with ideas saying, you know, somebody said this to me and I'm not seeing any programs that can do this, like Sujatha was saying earlier. So let's make a program like that or something. See what I'm saying? I want that two-way stuff. And I don't know whether it actually would fit as a goal in this, or just the fact that the staff has a committee that's engaged under Doug. Jessica, you're here, and those of us on the board are here thinking about these things. That's great. But I just want people to be made aware at all times that there are things that the library does that the community needs to know, and that maybe not everybody knows that. So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox again.
And I mean, I agree with Jessica in that it could easily fit under number 4 for
Yeah.
objectives.
Yeah.
And we've got a couple possible objectives surrounding communications, but the staff committee, we will discuss more about this and kind of just the need to ensure that we're as open and as communicative about what it is we offer to as many people as possible to spread the word.
Okay, great.
So back to 5, I had a thought on number 2, like champion workforce development in order to contribute to economic opportunities. And I'm sort of, I usually like fewer words, but in a way I'm thinking of like stepping back from saying that we're going to directly contribute to, development that contributes. It's very direct, whereas champion workforce development in order to contribute or to contribute, and maybe make that economic opportunities, which broadens that out to me in sort of a nice way.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I think success is pretty difficult so maybe just to expand, working to expand opportunities is broad enough. I don't know. I know I had a chance to look these over because I got them a number of weeks ago. And I hadn't thought about that. I mean, I have a lot of little notes on there because I was confused by this, and I do find it confusing. I mean, it's becoming clear. But anyway, those are just those are immediate thoughts, not well thought out, perhaps, but it's something to think about.
I think the one of the biggest things we're asking the staff to do, and they're doing it and have done it under your leadership, is to make sure that whatever we say fits in with the county's strategic plan that they just came out with or building or whatever they're doing now. And I'm sure economic opportunity and success in the county is a big part of that plan. So what we need to do is maybe not wordsmith ours so much as say that that's what we're doing, is supporting what the county and cities and within the county, Suzanne, are doing for the economic opportunity. So maybe this would be a more direct tie-in or something like that.
One of the county's community focus areas in their strategic plan is economic opportunity. I was actually on that strategy team. They're still not sure what kind of metrics to use that will help to prove that this is happening. But your point is taken that, as long as we can fit under their umbrella of economic opportunity, we should be fine.
And perhaps the broad umbrella is like economic opportunity, but that as you drill down onto an agency level, we're not going to do all economic opportunity, but where can we make a difference?
Writing resumes, helping people find jobs.
Well, helping people apply online for positions.
Apply online. There's a lot of things. Yeah.
Doug,
That's what I mean. It's like to individual economic opportunity, Well, it's, yeah, whatever, yeah. it's all
Does the
good.
county's economic opportunity strategic plan area, does it have it in a singular or plural format? Because like one of Fran's points was, do we want to expand it to economic opportunities?
It's singular, it's opportunity.
Mhm.
Yeah, very high level. Okay, well, so this one needs a little bit of work, but
Well, we can
It's a-
play with
it's a
that.
tough- It's a
yeah.
tough, it's a tough one. I think it's a tough
Yeah.
one to,
yeah. But again, I think it ties perhaps more directly to the county's plan than any other of our goals. I mean, all of our goals have to tie to it, but this one, you know, the economic well-being of Fairfax County and Fairfax City and all the other cities and groups and people and organizations and everything in Fairfax is a big part of the county's plan. I'm sure it has to be. That's what they run on because they get elected. We don't. So having a direct tie from libraries to supporting what they want to do
In fact,
is a good thing.
the precursor to the county strategic plan was a strategic plan for the economic success of Fairfax County. And so
There you go. Yeah, they use
um,
both words.
so the
Yeah.
economic opportunity strategy team for the county's
Mhm.
plan use that plan as kind of a starting point, and it shows up throughout the county strategic plan, not just in economic
Mhm.
opportunity.
Okay. All right. Well, if anybody doesn't have anything else to say, Doug, what do you plan to do next time? Go through the objectives? Would that be
So-
to come underneath the goals?
Yeah, so what we've got happening next week is the staff committee is getting together in person, and we will go through our objectives. I have an exercise worked out for us to where we'll come up with a kind of a draft list under each of your goals for the objectives. And that will come your way before, the end of July. At the same time, we'll be working on pieces of the narrative, so that in sometime early August, you'll get a draft of that. And that's really the last piece of the puzzle, is, okay, the staff committee has basically done our work. Now it's just tweaking it to where you're happy with it, and making sure the pieces of that narrative are complete. So right now there's a piece that speaks to the importance of staff and volunteers. We've discussed making sure that things like digital equity have a larger presence than simply as an objective under a goal. Mentioning the importance of placemaking, which is also a county theme in their strategic plan, things like that.
Mhm. Yeah.
So we'll be talking
Okay.
about that as well next week. And so
Great.
sometime before the end of July, you'll definitely see objectives.
Okay.
And then soon thereafter, draft of the narrative as well.
Okay, thank you very
Great.
much. And
That's great.
I would ask that, the next time when you send the objective, certainly it can be in the similar format to what you sent, so that we keep in mind what we've done and what we still have to do. But when we move into the narrative area, I would ask that you start to put it in a form that is actually going to be the strategic plan that'll have to be discussed and voted on. And that things like you take the notes off about it's a new goal, revised, that kind of stuff. That all goes away and just becomes more of a strategic plan, starting maybe in August or something. Would that be okay? Is that? all right with you?
Absolutely. Yeah. A lot of the extraneous stuff that you've seen in these documents is really just to help you understand.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
good.
no,
That's been good, yeah.
Understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it at some point we've got to start thinking about convincing our other trustees we're talking at least to them about it, and then getting it
Sure.
approved. So it has to actually be in a form that is a strategic plan when we approve it. And I appreciate that. Okay.
Yes, and I've looped Erin in marketing in on this, and she'll be receiving, the approved pieces as we approve them, and so that she and her
good,
team
good.
can be working on design and
On a fancy, yeah, she told me she's working on the annual report now. So she
Yes,
said that's
indeed.
keeping her very, very busy. And I was just looking at my little stack of annual reports, and I said, well, let's see if she beats these,
So committee process wise, I will check with the chair first about availability for meeting, likely early to mid-August, after you all have the objectives and the draft narrative. And then if you all are happy with that, you don't meet as a full board in August, so a draft of a document will be either in the September or October board packet as a consideration item.
Consideration.
And then it will be
September.
up for vote in either October and November so that you have it
Great.
ready and packaged and done before the end of the calendar year.
Okay, and that gives us enough time if we do get into this, like Sujata said, this discussion, and we have different ideas from different members who haven't been on these meetings. We have then a couple months. We can push it back and say, okay, well, no, we can't approve it in October, but maybe we can in November. Or,
Absolutely.
We have to by December. So.
We would appreciate it.
Well,
we-
hey, no
yeah,
problem.
we
We can just
do-
all take a vacation for January and then come back.
We do reporting to the state library during the summer.
Yeah.
So they are aware that this is being reviewed and that we're hoping to have it complete by the end of the calendar year. We just have to make sure and get a copy to them as soon as it's done for inclusion along with our state aid packet.
Yep. Okay, and it won't be included in the annual thing, but we can, yeah, and like eventually like a one pager or something like that, like we've had in the past for these things where we
Absolutely.
could hang them up on the library board, give them
Yes.
to all the librarians,
We
put
plan
them
to
in
do-
branch out back cover or something like that.
Yes,
And-
we plan to do both the full document, a short form, and the poster sized one that goes up in all facilities for ease of access for staff. and
Okay, okay, good. All right, any last minute items? Thank you very much, Doug. You really
Yes,
carry
yes,
these meetings.
Doug.
This is great. Please
Great.
don't miss one.
Great committee, the committee's doing great work, yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
That's-
yeah.
yeah.
Well, the staff is going to have
Pass
to
that
live with
along.
this day to day, so
Right.
they really need
Yes.
to know. Okay.
After you adjourn the meeting, Brian and Suzanne, can I talk to you just for like 2 minutes?
Sure.
Certainly, certainly. Okay, that's it. The meeting is now adjourned. Ooh, went 11 minutes over. I apologize.